So today we have another instance to where the White House and Trump are saying one thing and another country is saying something else. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. This is the headline. Qatar denies White House claim. Trump sent warning before Israel's attack. And I know it gets complicated when you start throwing all the stuff out here, but basically Israel attacked a Hamas target in Qatar today, right? And this is, I think, the first time Israel has done something like this in Qatar. Qatar's like, whoa, what are you going? What's going on here? We don't want any attacks in our country. Which, I mean, obviously, if you're a third country or try to be neutral in these stuff, you don't want other countries hitting you. The White House is saying, oh well, we warned you about this kind of stuff, and Qatar's like, no, he didn't. And this is a long-running pattern of Trump and the White House. Again, well, they'll say one thing and another country will say something else. It's similar with the trade talks where Trump and the White House, they'll announce something and then like Japan or Korea or Europe are like, no, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Like it's different. And part of what I try to do every day with you guys is go through everything in the news and help you to see the patterns. And this will help you understand the world much better. And a good way to think about it is, in your life, you have multiple relationships, right? Or in your work, you have multiple coworkers. And basically, when you work around people for a long time, you get a sense of like, okay, that person's trustworthy, that person's not trustworthy. And you guys will know this in your life you learn this through experience. And so one of the things that's really damaging about what Trump and the White House is doing is they're ruining the USA's credibility every single day. And it's like every day I see these kind of stories, right? Again, Qatar denies White House claim Trump sent a warning before Israel's attack.
President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack.
And breaking news, just in the last few moments, Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson has addressed what you heard there from the White House press spokesperson, that the country was informed of that Israeli attack on Doha beforehand. Qatar is saying that is false.
That's right. That statement from the foreign ministry literally dropping a couple of minutes ago. I'll read out exactly what it says. It says that the statements being circulated about Qatar being informed in advance of the attack are baseless. The statement goes on to say that the communication received from one of the American officials happened during the sound of the explosions. This obviously comes on the back of that statement made by the White House earlier, which said that Steve Witkoff, the US Special Envoy, was told to inform the Qataris of the impending attack. So Qatar very keen to point out that seemingly that advance warning that Witkoff was told to give the Qataris was nowhere near on time. The Qataris saying that they received it as the attack itself was happening.
It says White House criticizes Israeli strike on Hamas in Qatar. Because effectively what's going on, and I don't talk about Gaza on every single day, but I do care about it. I just want to make sure it's clear. It's just not the focus of my channel, but I do watch and I do care. And I also want to make it really clear. I care about lives on all sides, right? So sometimes some channels is like only focus on one aspect, and other channels will focus on another aspect. I just say this. I would like to have peace. I think this is obviously not helping if, again, Israel's attacking a Hamas target in a third country. And then, I think from the White House point of view and the Trumpers, White House, Donald Trump keeps saying he wants to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Good luck with that.
The Israeli attack that took place today in the state of Qatar, we can only call it as a state terrorism that is being exerted by someone like Netanyahu, given his attempts and his policies as he tries to threaten the regional security. This is only a clear message to the whole region. And this message says that there is one player, and there's also a disrespect to all the policies and also a violation to the sovereignty of all the countries and the states. Netanyahu said himself that he will reshape the Middle East. Does he mean that he's also going to reshape the Gulf region? I think that we have reached a decisive moment. There should be a retaliation from the whole region in the face of those barbaric actions that only reflects one thing. It reflects the barbarism of this person that is leading the region to, unfortunately, to a point where we cannot address any situation and we cannot repair anything and we cannot work within the frameworks of international laws. He just violates all those international laws.
Honestly, in my opinion, I wish the USA would just pull all support from Israel here. I think it would end much quicker. And also, I don't like that the Trump and his family are looking to profit off of this by building their hotels and resorts and casinos in Gaza. And that's literally what we talked about in a prior video. So there's that. On top of that, when you have this situation going on in the Middle East, which is basically effectively more war, the news came out today that there's less jobs in the USA. This is a major revision. It's the biggest in history. So we're revising jobs to the downside. This is like, hey, we're giving you new numbers. It says here, U.S. employers added 911,000 fewer jobs than first reported, new BLS data shows. This is a chart. And again, as I told you before, I think these stories, I want you to look at the full pattern, right? Not just one instance, like put everything in context. And in this context, I mean, we've had, I can see right here, like 3 years in a row now of downward revisions, and the revisions keep getting bigger and bigger. And effectively, when you're in rapid change, right? So something like a COVID situation or the great financial crisis, and I mean rapid change in job numbers and the way, people are reporting, because this, for example, let's say you just have so many jobs that are being lost. It's harder and harder to report so many, and then when they finally catch up on the numbers, it's like, oh my God, it's even worse than we thought. And so this tells an overriding story, and I think people already know this. We talk about all the time in the community that things are way worse than what the official government numbers are being reported. And even if, say, the unemployment number, I think the last number was 4.3, or the jobs, say, for example, they say, hey, we added, I can't remember, was it, I don't know, 12,000 jobs. I don't quote me, I just don't remember, but the amount of jobs that was like added last month, it just wasn't, I think it was like 22,000 or something. It just wasn't very many. Even if there, do get said job in this economy, it may not pay enough. And I think you guys already know that. Or even if they say, hey, there's these many jobs available out there, but like, you'll go and you'll look and you may apply and you might feel like, oh my God, I'm perfectly qualified for said thing. They never call you back. You never even get an email from said people. And you're just like, is this job even real? And there's a high chance it's not. So there's a lot of kind of phantom ghost jobs out there. I think you guys already know this stuff inherently. Inflation quashed household income gains in 2024. So even if you did get a raise, if you're lucky enough to have a job in this economy, even if you did get a raise, it may not necessarily be enough to keep up with the cost. Again, I think you guys already know all this stuff, but I think it's important to know the numbers and to know also that you're not alone. Because sometimes in this social media driven world, you look at Instagram or Facebook or, whatever, YouTube, and you feel like everyone's living their best life all the time. They're all buying Lambos or whatever. And you're like, what's going on? And because I know, guys, I see what's on social media. People post all sorts of crazy stuff. And I'll just say this, I think a lot of people are struggling. And I know a lot of people out there in USA live off, credit, leverage, etc. And you never know anyone's situation. You never know what's going on behind closed doors. But at least according to these numbers, right, your salaries aren't keeping up with inflation. So let me read a little bit of this so you guys can see what it says. Most American household income remained steady last year, in part because inflation counteracted gains in income, okay? But there were some notable exceptions. The richest 10% of households saw their income rise, and women and Black people lost ground, census data shows. So I think there's going to be a widening between rich and poor in USA. You see it in the numbers, you see it in this kind of stuff like, well, if you're in the top 10%, I guess you're doing fantastic. If you're in other groups, not so much. And again, I think you guys already know this stuff, but I just wanted to show you the patterns. Let's look at some numbers here. It says, after inflation, the median household income last year reached $83,730. So that's the middle household income. So not individual, but the household income. And you guys can let me know if this, in your neck of the woods, if this sounds about right. And again, every market's going to be different. Every situation is going to be different, but that's your median household income, right? A slight, but not statistically a significant increase from 82,690. So the median household income went up a little bit, but with inflation, it's, ends up being kind of same. Now, this was an interesting, this is an older article from December. It says Americans say their wages aren't going up enough, report finds. And basically only like 30% of Americans, the way they phrase it here, are satisfied with their pay, right? Only 30% of Americans think they get paid enough. So that means 70% of Americans are saying, no, I definitely don't get paid enough. And if you're curious the reasons of what people say, and there's a whole slew of reasons. So here's a chart. It says inflation fueling workers' dissatisfaction with pay. Major reasons employed Americans say they're unhappy with their wages. So what's the number one reason people are unhappy with their pay? It says pay hasn't kept up with the rising cost of living, right? Which I think is perfectly reasonable. You're just like, you don't pay me enough for how much things cost. That's essentially what most Americans are saying. Number two, it's kind of interesting. Pay is too low for the quality of work they do. So you feel like, and I hear this a lot in the community where you feel like, why should I, we'll say hurt myself, right? You guys know how I say it in real life, but why should I delete myself for a job who doesn't care about me? You guys know how it is. I mean, you guys know. So you just feel like, or you feel like even if I do, I put out really good work, like you just not pay me enough for what it is. Here's another thing that people say. Pay is too low for the amount of work they do. So we're talking about both quality. You feel like you're not getting paid enough for the quality of the work that you do, or how much you do. This is something else that I think has been a pattern. Again, I always tell you to look for the patterns. Is many companies out there, they want to get rid of the middle manager. For example, and it's not a company, but it's an organization, was the VA. We heard there was a statistic, I think it was last week, we talked about it in a video where before you would supervise, this, for example, like 10 people, and today you supervise like, 30, 40 people. And so this is something like the teams are getting bigger. And so then less workers on your team so much. And then the people after layoffs, right? So be it in the government or companies, then you get more work dumped onto you, right? So that's sort of why people say you don't pay me enough for like all the work you're giving me these days. And people always make the joke, and guys, I really know, to where if you work hard and you finish your work, what's your reward? More work, right? And so that's always kind of a disincentive to work hard. Trust me, I really know. I always hated that about corporate America. I really, really did. Here's another one. Don't earn enough to pay their bills, which is kind of the same as pay hasn't kept up with the rising cost of living, pretty much the same. And then also making less than coworkers who do similar work. So that's kind of a minority of people said that, but I'll be curious if you guys feel that way. So that's one of the reasons why people don't feel satisfied with their pay, is because they feel like they're making less than coworkers who do similar work. So I'll let you guys be the judge of that one. Here's some more numbers here. It says pre-tax income for the richest 10% of the American households, again, this is household, jumped from 193,700 to 251,000 since 2009. That's a nearly 30% increase. Okay, so we're comparing different income brackets and what were the salary gains from then to now, essentially. In that same time period, median household income increased 20% from 70,000 to 83,730. So sort of the median middle point, right? While the income for the lowest earning households increased about 16%, right, from 17,000 to 19,900. And this gives you a basic idea of the range. So not only is the gap getting bigger between the rich and the poor, you can see like it's effectively double the growth if you're in the top percent, right? You're getting double the growth in wage gains. So there's that. For me, I just try to look at the larger patterns and again, help you guys see it. And this is the pattern that I see, is that the White House and Trump will claim one thing and other countries will say something else. And basically it really hurts the credibility of the USA, because I'm pretty sure when all the other countries are kind of saying the same stuff, about Trump, like you can't trust him, he's just not telling the truth. It's pretty obvious what's going on here. So that's my thoughts. I'd like to hear yours. Please stay safe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.